From Iran with love. Who in our country's signal of command did not get the memo or ignore the president's executive order to tell the Iranian Navy to pull out of the recent BRICS war games off the False Bay coastline? While the defense minister hopes a board of inquiry will soon provide answers. But News 24 specialist journalist Carol Paton says that ship hasn't quite left the dock as yet.
I was told by, the Department of Defense, we're waiting for the terms of reference. We can't speak to you because we still don't have the terms of reference. And I said, do you know who's going to be on this board of inquiry? And they said, no, that hasn't been decided yet. So, in fact, the board of inquiry has not yet begun. So the 7 days, you premature in starting to count the 7 days there. The gun hasn't been fired yet.
Okay. Later in our trending topic, now the Reserve Bank governor has revealed that he thinks that pesky BS prime lending rate should be scrapped. And finally, we recall the country's worst mining disaster on record with On This Day in South African History, our regular segment at the end of the show.
New episodes of The Lead air Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m.
Not before which today's Rauby's Pointless Braai quiz. And our question is, which posh British celebrity family is currently imploding? I'll give you the answer at the end of the show. You might win some bragging rights indeed. My name's Graeme Robenheimer. This is The Lead, and this is the South African story. Moving to our top story today, in our brand new Cape Town studios, specialist writer Carol Paton is live with us here to help make sense of the diplomatic mess Pretoria's waded into with the Iranian Navy fiasco. What a mess indeed it's been, Carol. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm very delighted to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us. A keynote to our lead listeners, I had to put the temperature down in the studio because
up, temperature up.
Oh yeah. Okay, which way you ever want to look at it. It was too cold for Carol, so we actually had to make it a little bit warmer. She's got her blankie on and she's got a nice cup of tea as we have this discussion.
Thank you.
The latest word in this really intriguing story this morning comes from our politics editor, MC Ferreira, that the military knew for some time still that Iran's Navy was expected to take part in these highly contentious early to mid-January BRICS war games or drills that we had off the False Bay coastline departing from Simonstown. So the military knew all along, Carol?
Well, the military did know. And in fact, they knew as early as September that Iran, that they had invited Iran and that Iran was going to join. So the fact that this wasn't conveyed to anybody else, DIRCO, the Department of International Relations, the presidency, or anybody else, is a significant problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So what? It was always led by Russia, or was it always led by China?
So what happened was, they've done two of these before, right? And they were tripartite exercises. They were just Russia, South Africa, China. They've done it twice before. They were called Mosey 1 and Mosey 2. Mosey 2 was very controversial as well because they held it on the first anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine, which really, really got the Americans and the Europeans very upset, obviously. And in fact, we shouldn't even have had those exercises. But so the Mosey 3 was scheduled for November 2025, and at the same time as the G20 was being held. And we wrote a story saying, they're going ahead with this because we spoke to them and they said, yeah, we're going ahead, of course, Russia, China coming November. And then, of course, luckily the president stepped in and said, no, cancel this. So that's what happened. They postponed it. And then in the next iteration, they brought it back even worse by inviting all the BRICS partners, but only one, which was Iran, agreed to participate. So that's how we came to the 4 countries that were part of the maneuvers.
And just before we get to all those other decisions, it is important to just also kind of pause and note India didn't really want to take part, and they sort of had their own decision and gone, maybe this is a little too geopolitically fraught.
Exactly. I mean, India's never going to be part of a joint military operation with China anyway. But Brazil as well. I mean, other countries were like, we're not wading into this mess. And so it materialized.
Okay, what an interesting January it's been, because here came this very executive order from the president's office, from the Union Buildings in Pretoria. President Cyril Ramaphosa came out and said, hey, via my defense minister, Minister Motshekga, previously the basic education minister, here's my executive order. You need to tell Iran, take your 3 ships, leave Simonstown, because you can't be part of the so-called willful peace naval drills. Now the bone of contention is, who ignored that order? And was that order also put in black and white in actual physical writing? So it's not a very easy once-off thing, because somebody didn't listen to the order, and there's also concerns that the order wasn't put on a piece of paper.
Exactly. So I think when the Board of Inquiry, which is going to investigate what went wrong here, actually sits, one of the big things this is going to be one of the issues. How was this order from Ramaphosa conveyed? And my understanding, and this is what, the presidency refused to say it was conveyed in writing, which means, well, it wasn't. So it was either conveyed verbally to Angie Motshekga or by WhatsApp, even worse. And then Angie Motshekga in turn conveyed this to the chief of the military and the head of operations. So, and how, once again, we don't know. Now, in the military, orders are orders, right? And they follow a certain format, and they're called signals. And you get the order at the top, and then the signal is passed down to everyone in the chain. And that's how orders are carried out. Now, that, it seems, as far as we can understand, didn't happen, and everyone's being very cagey about that, because the inquiry is going to look at it. But that said, I mean, if you get a phone call from the president or the minister, and the minister or the president say, stop this, tell Iran to go home, yes, you should definitely fall into line, and you should definitely try and make that happen. I suspect there might be some difficult diplomatic protocols that delayed the relaying of that message, because it was only a verbal one.
If it wasn't overtly ignored in the first place, right?
Exactly, that's also a possibility, and that's what many people think. I think it's a little bit unlikely.
Okay. The current Board of Inquiry, there was obviously fanfare in the media that it would be a 7 days thing, and we would get answers nice and quick and fast, and that this Board of Inquiry would be set up quite quickly, and those revelations would come to light publicly. What is the actual word on where we sit in that process now? Because that came about the 16th to the 17th of January?
So, yes, I think I also heard 7 days mentioned. But yesterday I was told by, the Department of Defense, well, we're waiting for the terms of reference. We can't speak to you because we still don't have the terms of reference. And I said, well, do you know who's going to be on this Board of Inquiry? And they said, no, that hasn't been decided yet. So, in fact, the Board of Inquiry has not yet begun. So the 7 days, you premature in starting to count the 7 days there. We're waiting with 7 days. The gun hasn't been fired yet.
Okay. All right. I guess we'll just wait even longer still for further answers, all while I'm sure the Iranian Navy is already back in Tehran by this point,
well, I hope so.
Okay. The US doesn't like all of this. I mean, that's very plain to see. The Trump administration, more so than ever before, is not happy with South Africa that this has transpired. And their social media statements, whatever they've been putting out into the ether publicly, has said as much. And of course, this comes during tense times for South Africa. Not only do we want a new trade deal and to get rid of these Trump tariffs, we'd also like to still sneak our way through a new Agoa agreement that's currently being deliberated by US lawmakers. And for now, at least, it seems, in terms of a silver lining, we're not being excluded from that Agoa agreement, which would cover, obviously, the whole of Southern Africa and give us sort of certain exemptions under these tariffs, right?
That's right, yeah, the whole of Africa, except for one or two countries that are excluded because they don't behave properly. And we're hoping that we're not next on the badly behaved list and are excluded. So, as you say, I mean, all this comes at a time when they've just passed an extension through the House of Representatives for the extension of Agoa, with no provisos that South Africa won't be part of it, but that it now goes to the Senate and then obviously to the White House, and we don't know, and I think our negotiators are not actually holding out too much hope, because all of this happened at the exact same time that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard sailed into Table Bay.
And G20 and all of that in Florida next year, we also can just sort of write it off for now, I think, unless there's some other new declaration that comes around and says we are finally invited there. Then there's this talk, back to the military, that Vice Admiral Lobise, as well as the actual general of the SANDF, Mr. Rudzani Mapwanya, that they don't see eye to eye. And then that's adding a lot of extra intrigue to the whole fiasco.
Yeah, look, Lobisi has I think Lobisi is on the chopping block. You know, I think because this isn't the first issue. Look, it wouldn't have been his decision to tell Iran, or maybe he was part of the chain to convey the message and didn't. I don't know. We'll find that out too. You're right. There does seem to be some bad blood between him and the chief of the Defence Force, and he apparently hasn't been attending the meetings he's supposed to attend, and he did make some very outspoken statements about, talking about the Treasury and how it's intentionally defunding the military so that, private interests can come in and sort of, take advantage of South Africa. So there's some strange stuff going on with Lobisi, and I think Lobisi's gonna be on the chopping block.
Yeah. And if you just look at his current tenure thus far and the things that have happened under him, we've had the Lady R scandal. Yes, we've had a Navy that is a shade of its former self, perhaps not obviously of necessarily his administration's doing, but he's dealing with a difficult kettle of fish, so to speak. And then under our general, I mean, notwithstanding, he did go to Tehran and meet his Iranian general counterpart there. And I think that set also a bit of a dangerous precedent when we look how our military heads are conducting themselves.
Yeah.
The argument is, are they overreaching their hand when it comes to diplomatic affairs?
So the thing is that there is actually, in terms of government policy, there's nothing wrong with what the heads of the of the Defence Force did in either going to Iran or making or having friendly relations with Iran. We have friendly relations with Iran. We have diplomatic relations with them, and that is our stance. The point is really that given the geopolitical environment, would you want to do that now? Would you want to make that very public now? Now, clearly Iran's got reasons for making it very public. Every time anything happens, they tweet it all over, they broadcast it on Iranian television, etc., etc. So they're very pleased that South Africans are making friendly, public appearances. But that's not exactly what we should be doing. So the issue with the army is that it's foreign policy is the purview of DIRCO, of Department of International Relations, and it seems that relationship in the cabinet and at the level of government, at the level of the administration, those relationships appear to have broken down. And I think when the Board of Inquiry sits
and constitutes itself finally,
that's one of the things that is, but really, really needs to be looked at. Like, how does the military and DIRCO and the rest of government and the presidency, how do they all communicate? What are the proper channels? Why?
But there is a committee for this, right? A special committee you've outlined in your latest piece.
There are committees, but the committees, some of the committee meetings are held, but the right issues are not on the agenda. So whose responsibility is that? So if we're talking about chopping blocks, I think that Minister Motshekga might also be on the chopping block, because clearly she has not done her duty in terms of appraising everyone in the cabinet about what the military is up to.
I think it doesn't help the military at all. I think, if you go into your average pub in Simonstown and sit down with an older gentleman, he's going to say to you it's a dog show.
No, you see, and this is the problem, is that everyone's now blaming the generals for going rogue, but the truth about it, and I wrote it in my piece, is that militaries all over the world, they don't like to be told what to do. No. Number one, and number two, they also tend to be a lot more militaristic than you. That's why we have civilian leadership. That's why it's important to have civilian leadership. And that civilian leadership is supposed to put them in line and say, no, you can't go to Iran and you can't make such statements, and this, you are subject to civilian leadership, and that exercise of civilian leadership has broken down. And once that happens with any military, you will get all sorts of misadventures taking place.
There is this also backroom sort of murmurations at the moment that the president could very well replace Motshekga with Siphiwe Nyanda, who had previously served as the commander of the SANDF. Do we know a little bit more about who Nyanda is? And
Nyanda was he was the first head of the Defence Force in the democratic South Africa. He was a MK commander. He was very popular. And he was very well respected in the kind of military fraternity. So he had to retire. I think he must have reached retirement age. And that was some time ago. So I'm not sure exactly how old he is now. I mean, he must be around 70, I guess.
I'll fact check that for you.
But I think that it would be. It's something you can imagine
75.
Ramaphosa doing that, right? You see, now that's not such a spring chicken, okay?
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem, is that Ramaphosa is being forced to sort of go back and get all the people from the 90s to bring them back to fix government, like Feroz Kachalia and others. So it's if that's the right choice, I'm not sure. But clearly, Minister Motshekga has not nailed this job at all.
Not to the mast. Carol Paton's latest piece, of course, is entitled "Have the Generals Gone Rogue, or Did Cyril and Angie Forget to Tell Them What to Do?" And you base your whole piece around this very simple tenet that any sovereignty of a republic or a country or whatever needs to be guided by quote unquote a national interest that would be shared by in everybody's best interest, so to speak. You argue that the ANC's purview of that, or interpretation of this inverted commas national interest, has always been sort of fuzzy. Elaborate a little bit further there. It's
too fuzzy. So, what is the national interest? What is most important for all of us as South Africans? And that is that our sovereignty and our economic and well-being and security. That is what is number one. But clearly there are other national interests like trade, and you want friendly relations and so on. And I think that the aspect of diplomacy in which South Africa feels the need to express solidarity and jump into all of these global contentious issues and take a position is really clouding matters. So I know in the ANC, for instance, in the NEC, after Venezuela was after what's his name, Maduro. After Maduro was grabbed, the ANC,
quite physically.
Yes, the ANC NEC had a debate about saying we should take the USA to to the ICJ. I mean, that is just an absurd thing, you know. We don't need to jump into that fight. That's not our fight. You know, I think that we don't know when to shut up, and we don't know when to take the back seat, and I think we're learning about that the hard way. So let's just
agree 100%.
Let's just try and focus, focus. What's good for the country? What's good for the economy? What's good for the people of the country? That is where our national interest lies.
Because it's not as if our trade relations with Iran are anything majorly to write home about and celebrate, right?
Zilch. I mean, almost zilch.
It's the same with Venezuela. I've had this discussion before with Philip de Wet. It's not really that big, grand scheme of things. If anything, we should be focusing a lot more on the US situation.
I mean, let's just shut up, you know? Let's just put our heads down and shut up.
Right.
On a lot of these things.
And then you talk about, finally, the interpolation between the military and South Africa and finding that best fit all national interest, and finally realizing that comes down to the civilian authority and all of these things.
Right.
When you argue that, do you mean that, you know, when we look at our military, it's not overtly politicized?
Yeah, absolutely. So that shouldn't be the case, that your military then starts expressing political views and attempting to provide political leadership. You don't want that, and you don't want that at all, either in the army or the police or the intelligence services, which means that your civilian leadership must be strong. Because if you don't have strong civilian leadership, and all of these arms of, you know, security apparatus have civilian, it's built into the Constitution, they have civilian leadership. If you don't have civilian leadership, people get confused, and then they start to get involved in politics, as we've watched with the police. So that's the key to it. Democracies need strong civilian leadership, and I think we've kind of, with the sort of general dysfunctionality in so many areas of the state, that has fallen by the wayside.
So, ending off, it really is hoped, and I'm not very hopeful. Maybe it'll offer somewhat of a starting point, but that the findings of this Board of Inquiry would hopefully be some sort of draft blueprint that would say, let's try and avoid this Iranian Navy debacle again in future and use this as our launching pad. And then we can get later onto the points of beefing up the budget for the Defense Department and getting the right leaders in to ensure that those things work for us, right?
Yeah, I think that the issue is what we want. Yes, of course, people want to know whose head is going to roll, and that's totally acceptable. I agree. We do need to know. There needs to be accountability.
I'm not holding my breath there.
But more importantly than that, the institutions need to be fixed. So how does the military decide on when it's going to do joint operations or joint maneuvers with another country? Who makes that decision? Where is it discussed? Is it in our best interest? Is it in our national interest? Those sorts of institutional arrangements must be fixed so that there is proper communication and proper civilian leadership exercised.
Look, it's the 21st of January 2026, but I called it when the GNU was first put together, and I've said this on a previous show. The foreign policy and how we conduct ourselves on the world stage will always be the ultimate sore sticking point for those internally within the current configuration of the government of national unity. And I fear that this is only set a sore precedent for the rest of the year as we move to local government elections, because that will still become a rallying cry amongst different political parties as they tackle that election campaign. I fear that until we get this right, it's only going to get worse.
You know, that is the problem. We're a divided country, we're a divided population. We politically, we're quite sharply divided on these sorts of issues like foreign policy. That's why we have to say, well, what is it that unites us? And what unites us is to say, well, our interest is keeping South Africa going, healthy, running economy well, protecting our sovereignty, delivering for our people. Those are the things that we need to keep reminding ourselves. That's the priority, not waving a flag around Venezuela or any other country for that matter.
It's the South African national interest, after all, isn't it?
Exactly.
Carol, thank you so much. Very sobering discussion. I know it was all a little bit all over the place, lead listeners, but geopolitics is all over the place, is it not?
It's all over the place. It's everywhere.
Yeah, and the studio's only warmed up in its political temperature ever since. Carol, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Chat again soon.
Yes, can't wait.
You're listening to the latest edition of The Lead on News 24 with Graeme Rowenheimer. If you've got an opinion on what you've heard so far, drop us a short voice note on our WhatsApp hotline. That's 072 562 3179. Trending topic.
To our trending topic in a timeous update to our show from nearly a week ago with News 24 business journalist Garth Tiernison, entitled, "Is the prime lending rate just a load of BS?" While the Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago has now told the media on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, that it would be best just to get rid of the rate once and for all. In plain speak, the fancifully advertised rate that banks use is but a mere reference or pegging point to sell bonds and loans to us at an unofficially agreed 350 basis points more than our much-deserved current low repo rate. We know that the SA Reserve Bank had been reviewing this rate for the longest time now. And Tiernison also revealed in our chat that the Competition Commission's already been looking into alleged cartel collusion regarding this rate and local banks since 2021. Kganyago believes the local consumer deserves a lot more transparency regarding the rates at which they take on loans, with the central bank set to meet next week again to review the current repo rate, currently sitting at 6.75%. Let's pray, homeowners, for another 25 basis points cut soon.
And finally,
ending off with On This Day in South African History. That's the 21st of January 1960, the following courtesy of South African History Online. Well, in the worst mining disaster in South African history, a large section of the Clydesdale colliery at the Colebrook mine near Sasolburg, that's in the then Orange Free State, had caved in, leaving about 1,000 miners in the mine at the time trapped, 453 of which died, while the rest had managed to escape through an incline shaft. The miners were suffocated, sadly, by methane gas and crushed to death by rockfall. Now, no machine at the time capable of drilling holes large enough through which to rescue people was available anywhere in South Africa, and immediately after this incident, rescue teams arrived from other mines in the region, and boreholes had to be drilled into parts of the mine where survivors were expected to be. Microphones were lowered. No signs of life, though, were detected, and after 11 days, the rescue was in fact called off. The majority of the miners at Clydesdale Colliery were Basotho-land and Portuguese East African nationals. This accident was believed to have been caused by the disintegration of some 900 underground pillars. Following the disaster, the apartheid government established Coal Mines Research Controlling Council to improve coal mine safety in general, though this disaster would soon be overshadowed by the Sharpeville revolt, which would come to dictate South African terms in the global eyes for decades to follow. And now for the answer to Rauby's pointless Braai quiz for today. We asked which posh British celebrity family is currently imploding, and the answer is, of course, the royal... I'm joking, it's not the royal family. It's the other royal family, the non-royal family. It's the Beckhams, of course. As you may have now known, unless you live under a rock like myself, the son, Brooklyn Beckham, has openly accused his mom and pops of putting the family's public-facing brand first and his relationship with his wife, Nicola, last. Now, he claims he doesn't want to reconcile with his dad, Sir David, or his mom, Lady Victoria, after claiming that the pair attacked him and his wife in the press. He claims the couple plant lies about him and his wife in the media. He even went as far as saying that his mom, Lady Beckham, hijacked their first dance at a wedding, claiming that when he was called to the stage, quote-unquote, my mom was waiting to dance with me instead of his wife, and danced, quote-unquote, very inappropriately on me in front of everyone. Goodness me, that must be an awkward family WhatsApp group. Well, if this was your answer all along, congratulations, you score absolutely zilch. Nothing. Nada. Maybe you know a little bit more about the story now, and that will make you sound very informed around the Braai. And then perhaps you did win something after all, because that's quite priceless. And you heard it here, of course, first on The Lead on News 24. If you'd like to get in touch with us, thelead@24.com. That's where you can send your emails. You can drop us comments below. I monitor those mailboxes for you 24/7. And then hit like, follow and subscribe. Subscribe, most of all, is our most important function. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on Apple. Rate us there 5 stars, please. Rate us on Spotify and subscribe there as well. That way you'll be notified of all of our future editions and you become a lead listener too. My name's Graeme Rauby, and so long as there's trusted news first, we'll always have The Lead.